This is Donna Michelle St. Bernard. She's the playwright.
This is Yvette Nolan, the director.
Okay, so the Community Justice Forum was such a huge part of building the show, because because we spent those 2 weeks together, by the time we got into like the real world room, everyone already had a basic grounding in not just the text, but the stories behind the text and the groups with whom we're affiliated. And for me, certainly what was important was the connection between this land and the African continent. So like Turtle Island and Africa, and how those things are connected, because for me, we're grappling with reconciliation on this land at the same time as the people in this story are grappling with, what does that mean? What does reconciliation mean? That's how I feel. What does reconciliation mean?
Yeah. And who has to do it? Who gets to do it? I feel like yes to all of those things about the Community Justice Forum. The way that we got to hear from, like, at least one artist we heard from who was also a former child abductee, who spoke really openly about his experiences and then did some songs and got us all to dance. Like, that sort of access to that story firsthand was really important. And then also to, like, breaking down those the big principles of justice, the principles of abolition that we apply to our work, both of us, breaking them down into, like, what does that mean outside the philosophical realm? And so looking at the world of sex trade, of migrant workers, of incarcerated youth, all sorts of looking at a spectrum of justice. And I guess for me, part of it was reaffirming this has everything to do with that. Everything that we're doing in this play, that we're doing in this story, has everything to do with where we are now, with how we encounter justice in our lives every day, and with what is expected of us. Even if the story we're hearing seems like it's a faraway story, it expects something of us here now where we are. And I think that really got centered in the Justice Forum. And we got to talk to, like, all the smartest people that we know. So also that too. We integrated care into this process carefully. There were so many points of care, I feel like, to consider, to allow us to get to production, to opening in a healthy way. We're asking the actors to just deal with some really difficult stories, to animate some really difficult stories. And for me, even knowing exactly what those difficult things were going to be as we came to them in rehearsal, I would sometimes need to tap out, because it's a process of exploration. How are we going to depict this? How vividly, how graphically, how explicitly is this thing happening? And so harm is done to children in this story. We have a number of mothers in our cast and creative team, and we have to be mindful that this story is affecting for everyone, but more so for folks who have created life, and who are responsible for keeping small people alive on a daily basis. There's a spectrum of mental health, the entire spectrum of mental health that could be impacted by aspects of this play. There are people in our team who have greater proximity to war, to conflict, and to trauma. And so these are all things that we tried to take into account, not quietly, to just openly say these are things that it's valid to be affected by these things. And so we tried to make space for people to be able to step out when they need to step out. We tried to be in an open conversation about processes of self-care as an aspect of artistic process and artistic practice. And early on, we invited people to share what their individual practices of care are, especially, I think, in an intergenerational cast. Some people have a really established way of landing the feelings from the day, like putting them somewhere when they get home. And some people have had less time to evolve that. I don't know if that addresses the question, to be honest, but I feel like those are some of the ways that we're approaching care with intention, and then looking at the way that all that care inside the team, and the gorgeous, gorgeous way that the team members care for each other, right? There's so much space making for each other and for people are at on any given day. That we hope and I believe that translates into the way that the staging of this show cares for the audience. Without holding back the reality that we're talking about, we're not here to ruin anybody inside or outside of the show.